Good morning, and welcome to your Stylo News Intelligence Update for April 23, 2026. Our focus today is on what we're calling the Hormuz Gambit. It's a really high-stakes situation playing out in the Middle East, and Iran's leverage is right at the heart of a very fragile ceasefire.
So, let's get right to our lead story. The Strait of Hormuz is now considered operationally contested. What does that mean? Well, commercial shipping is being seriously disrupted, and intelligence assessments are now elevating the threat of military action. We're going to break down exactly how we got to this point.
And just a quick note, this intelligence update is brought to you by ProWave AI, the developers of the Stylo Intel Ops platform. All right, let's begin with this situation as it stands right now. We're talking about a strategic choke point that has the whole region on high alert.
And you really can't overstate the global stakes here. Think about this. Nearly 20% of the world's entire oil supply has to pass through this narrow waterway. It's a vital artery for global energy, and with it now under such a severe threat, well, the consequences for economies worldwide could be massive.
So what does this disruption actually look like on the water? Well, reports are pointing to some really severe impacts on maritime traffic. We're hearing claims that Iran's IRGC is now enforcing permissions-based routing. Some traffic has been halted altogether, and the general risk for just navigating the area is way up. The bottom line? The strait is now officially assessed as commercially degraded.
Okay, so the big question is, how did we get here so fast? To really understand the tension today, we have to rewind and look at the key events from just the last 2 weeks.
And the escalation has been, well, incredibly fast. It all kicked off just 2 weeks ago when the U.S. initiated a naval blockade after peace talks broke down. Iran, in response, threatened retaliation. That led to a direct naval clash in the Gulf of Oman. And that brings us to today, where we're watching a very fragile ceasefire that honestly looks like it could collapse at any moment.
Now, this standoff isn't happening in a vacuum. Its impact is already being felt far beyond the Gulf. We're seeing clear ripple effects hitting regional stability and global markets.
Intelligence assessments are now pointing to an elevated and pretty credible threat to the neighboring countries in what's known as the Gulf Cooperation Council, or the GCC. And when you look at the most likely targets, it's all about critical infrastructure. We're talking about things like oil processing facilities, desalination plants, and even key military and financial centers.
And you know, the geography here is just a critical factor. As you can see, major industrial hubs and key ports in places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, they're all within range of Iranian strike systems. That proximity just raises the stakes for the entire region immensely. On the economic front, this whole situation has really unsettled global energy markets. Oil prices have already surged past $100 a barrel, and that, of course, creates a huge amount of uncertainty for everyone, from producers to consumers all around the world. This conflict is also putting a strain on international alliances. Because the U.S. is diverting military resources to the region, we're now hearing reports of delays in arms deliveries to key European partners. It's just a perfect example of how interconnected global security truly is. So if we want to get a sense of what might happen next, we really have to dig into the calculations of the key players involved. Let's take a moment and break down these different perspectives.
And it's pretty clear the international response is divided. On one hand, you have the United States framing its blockade as a necessary step to ensure freedom of navigation. On the other, Iran calls it a flat-out act of aggression and economic warfare. And then you have other major powers weighing in. China is opposing any unilateral actions that threaten trade, and the European Union is really pushing for everyone to get back to the diplomatic table. All right, so where does that leave us? What should we all be watching for over, say, the next 72 hours? Well, our intelligence assessment is pointing to several developments that are both likely and pretty dangerous.
You know, the most dangerous pathways all involve a shift from just making threats to taking direct action. And what could that look like? Well, it could be anything from a selective strike on a tanker or a port facility, to the exposure of more IRGC-linked cells in those neighboring states. It could even mean proxy actions against diplomatic or military sites. And the most worrying, perhaps, is a shift from threatening to actually using mines or missiles in the shipping lanes.
So with this fragile ceasefire basically collapsing and with all these potential escalation pathways now so clear, the critical question is this: what is going to be the next move in this Hormuz Gambit? It's a situation that is literally evolving by the hour.
Now, if you want a much deeper analysis of all the strategic calculations and the potential outcomes here, we do invite you to listen to our full Stylo News Intelligence Update.
You can find it on your favorite podcast channel or just use the link you see in this post. Thank you for joining us for this intelligence update. For more AI-powered news on demand, please visit us at stylonews.com and subscribe. We'll be back with more updates soon.